everyone, this is David Stark from WatcherPass.com, your website for movie reviews, interviews, and recommendations. Today I'm doing my last spooky interview of the season, and I'm talking to Geraint Anderson, the writer and producer of the British thriller Trick or Treat. We're going to talk to Geraint in just a second, but first let's check out that trailer. And as you're watching, if you could like and subscribe, that'd be fantastic. It helps me out a lot. Thank you.
My next 20 years are mapped out. There's not a day goes by I don't think about getting on a plane and heading off to Rio.
Happy birthday, Greg.
Well, it's actually 45 years and 9 minutes ago.
Oh, you were born midnight Halloween, and that make you some sort of a witch?
Just by being alive.
Oh,
How about now?
There we go. I hear something now.
You got me?
Yep.
Hey!
Excellent.
How are we doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I can hear you well.
Perfect.
Mate, I have to be honest, I stayed up most of the night watching the US election for a bit of fun.
Yeah.
So I might not be 100%, but I'm okay. I'm all right. And you know, it's been an interesting 24 hours.
It has been, yeah. I was up pretty late last night watching as well. You know, there's a nonpartisan website, so you know we don't endorse a particular candidate, but it was an interesting night, and it's been an interesting day, and it'll probably be an interesting week, to be honest. We'll see.
Yeah, man, interesting month.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it seems like there will be at least some answers tonight, and then at least by the end of the week we should, you know, have a
man.
Sure. So we'll see what happens. You know, it's been
cool.
4 years. So
yeah, man.
And
tell me about
things that happened in the last 4 years. We're here to talk about Trick or Treat. It's a British thriller that was released around Halloween of last year. So, you know, it was released last year Halloween when kind of things were as normal as you can expect. And then this year we just had another Halloween with a very different type of experience. I don't know what it was like in Britain, but in America, you know, there were a lot of trick-or-treat events were canceled. A lot of people kind of stayed home and didn't, you know, if they did go out, they tried to socially distance. So I guess the first question is, you know, what has it been like, you know, with the film being released in more of a regular cycle, and then, you know, now having to promote the film, you know, for another Halloween during COVID? What's been the experience like, and have there been any, you know, positives about the COVID promotion, or is any observations that you might have?
Yeah, so I mean, we released it last year in cinemas. Obviously for Halloween, because it kind of was trick or treat. It's set on the night of Halloween. And then we actually bought the release in the UK a little earlier, because to try and, dare I use the word, leverage off the need for content. So we released it in June via the streamers like Amazon and Sky Store and iTunes and that in the UK. And I think the idea was that people were getting so bored of the lack of sports events and all those kind of things that, you know, it would be a good thing to do to bring it forward from the Halloween release date that we had intended. And I think that did work quite well, to be honest. People are really bored of, you know, what they didn't. They were just running out of things to watch because they're in lockdown, basically. And now it's been released in America. It was released a few weeks ago on the likes of Amazon, Vudu, DirecTV, and there's even DVDs in Walmart. I haven't talked to our distributor SP Releasing yet, but I get the feeling that it's going pretty well. And actually, something about, you know, I'm getting a lot more clicks on the links we've sent out. So yeah, man, I think people need content, and this is a topical film, and there's a lot of humor in there, and people need a bit of fun in these rather trying times.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we talked to a lot of indie films. It definitely has been a silver lining of the whole quarantine and lockdown, is, you know, you get kind of more even footing with the major releases, since those really aren't coming to theaters. So you get it, you know, if someone's looking for a film, you're not drowned out by the big theaters or, you know,
That's
big
right.
major releases. It's kind of, everyone's kind of open, and you can kind of pick and choose, and you get some more options, which has been, you know, it's been nice. As nice as this whole experience can be, there have been a lot of indie gems that I get to check out. So that's been a fun
there aren't many silver linings to this, you know, horrific situation, but you know, maybe there's just one, which is, as you say, indie films are getting a bit more of a chance to make an impact, and I'm hoping that this film is doing just that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, we'll talk about the film specifics in a second. You know, I guess one thing I'm curious about, because I talked to a lot of indie developers out in the States. You know, what's the process like to get an indie film in Britain? Is it, you know, relatively similar? You kind of make a concept and get funding, or is there some crazy experience?
It's a tough experience. You know, as always, the main thing is raising the cash. to raise the cash, you've got to get the decent cast. And, and obviously the script has to be good. I wrote the script as well as producing the film. Now, the cast, the good thing is that my brother-in-law was a reasonably well-known actor in the UK. His name is Craig Kelly. He married my my wife's sister, sorry. And he had a load of famous friends. People like, Jason Fleming from Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Hugo Spear from The Full Monty. He had Francis Barber, who's been in a hell of a lot of things, and Sean Parks, who was in The Mummy Returns, and all this stuff. So we could get these people for, I won't say how cheaply we got them, but let's just say that there was no way in hell I would be able to afford them without my brother's, my brother-in-law's connections.
You got a friend and family discount, which is,
Oh man,
expected.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, basically, it is tough making an independent film. Of that, there can be no doubt. Either side of the pond, it's always about getting the money, and we managed to find a few rich ex-banker types who I think had made a few quid in the previous years and thought, let's do something a bit more fun with their money. And we'll see if they make a return on that. It is quite hard to make a decent return, but they've had a lot of fun. They've been coming to screenings, meeting the actors, that kind of thing. The usual incentives you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds interesting. That you have to get the cast first. I think a lot of times out here, people will kind of write something, and then maybe they'll make a like a demo of it to kind of show that what they can do, and then you can start recruiting the cast. Sometimes you have the cast beforehand, but a lot of times you do it after. So it's seems like a similar process, and it's always very difficult to get an indie film made, and then also to get it out there and get people to see it. So,
and I mean, as regards the cast, without blowing too much smoke up my own derriere, they wouldn't have joined on no matter what their relationship with my brother-in-law was, unless they'd believed in the script. And so I was very proud of that script, and it gave them all a character that they could get their teeth into, and that's vital. You cannot rewrite a script too many times to perfect it, because if you haven't got the script, you won't get the cast, and then you won't get the cash. And so, the one conclusion I had is never try and put a half-finished script out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the script, I can totally see the actors latching onto the different characters, because there were a lot of characters in this film. There were some really, it felt very personal, but also there was enough kind of levity in the characters and in some of their interactions that made it, a serious story have, more entertainment value than I think it could have if it was pure seriousness.
That's right. I didn't want to just, in theory, there's elements about, looking into male midlife crisis, the guy's a gangster who's kind of depressed and those kind of elements. But I didn't want it to make it a depressing film. But if there was one kind of message, it was perhaps drawing people's attention to the fact that, so many men in Britain commit suicide. It's ridiculous. And it is the biggest cause of death for men under the age of 45. But we didn't want to make it a depressing film.
So I guess, to go into kind of the story of this film, it does feel like a very personal film. I don't know if it's based on your own experiences. It sounds like, maybe based on experiences of people that because it's a very big problem. I think it's great to kind of shine a light on men's mental health. It's something that is not really talked about a lot, just because of the general nature of society and how men are, traditionally supposed to be portrayed. So I guess, what was the inspiration for this film, and kind of what was the genesis for this story?
Yeah, it is a very personal film. I am interested in mental health. I have found being a parent, as someone who used to party hard, trying to get used to young kids, 10 years into a marriage, all those things that hit you in your mid-40s, maybe you haven't achieved all the goals that you wish you had. And I wanted to talk about those things and do it in a way that is fun, is exciting. And I thought, a retired ex-gangster who suddenly brought back into the world he'd left behind, but then all is not as it seems, was a good way of getting people to think about this stuff, but without kind of making it a sermon or preachy. It's also partly based on my brother-in-law, who was really struggling. He's the character, Craig Kelly, and he was really struggling with parenthood. The male role has transformed more in the last 50 years than the previous 500, maybe even the previous 5,000. And there's a lot of guys out there struggling. And I thought, let's look into that, but let's do it in the most enjoyable, exciting way. It's kind of a horror film, but the monster, it ain't Dracula. It's middle age is the monster, and it's chasing you, and you can't escape it.
It's hitting us all. I think that's so true. I have kids myself, and it's something that you can't prepare for. And
No, it's a tough gig.
It is. It just changes your life, and often it's generally for the better, but that
Yes.
change itself is a tough transition, and it's something that you just I think people can kind of think about it and say like, oh yeah, no, I would want to give up all my fun and take care of the kids, the number one goal of my life. But then when it actually happens, it's kind of tough.
Especially for older fathers, because they've got used to being selfish, hedonistic buffoons, and then suddenly you're like 40 and you go, just a minute, I'm not even the number one priority here. I'm like number 5 after the 2 kids, my wife, the 2 dogs, maybe the cat, the chickens, and suddenly you're like, and the amount of waking hours you have in the day where you can just do what the hell you want is quite few.
Yes, and especially now with everyone's situation is different, but a lot of people now kind of thrust into this home life that maybe had a more active lifestyle before. I think that this film could speak to them as well. You don't necessarily have to have kids to be in a rut and wondering, what you want to do next. And
absolutely, as you say, especially in this COVID situation, and actually, that's a very good point. Is the mental health issues are clearly really exploding in this country, certainly with being locked down, and not only that, there's a talk of a lot of divorces coming next year. You know what I mean? It's an interesting times, but and we need a bit of levity, a little bit of fun to try and get through them, because if you don't, you either laugh or you cry in this game.
Yeah, no, definitely. The divorces is an interesting point too, because this is again just something that we haven't really ever experienced. What do you do if you have problems, but it's tough to go talk to someone about it, and it's tough to even get some separation to cool off. It's just a weird situation that we're all in right now.
That's right.
So you mentioned that your brother-in-law knew some of the actors and whatnot. So when you were writing this film, did you write with some of them in mind, or was it just kind of happenstance that some of the characters meshed with some of the characters or some of the actors that your brother-in-law knew?
So in the film, there are 2 brothers, as you know, and Craig Kelly has a younger brother who's also quite a well-known actor in the UK, Dean Lennox Kelly, who was in 2 very popular series. He was one of the major characters in the UK version of Shameless, which I know the Americans have done a version of, and he was in Jamestown, which was quite a successful series on Sky. And then once me and Craig and Dean got together, we then started thinking about their friends we could get involved, and that's when he said, like, Sean Parks, he's the man for that. Clarence, Jason Fleming, he should be the taxi driver. He's that, So it was a great kind of, and it really did fit together like a jigsaw. And there's not one single piece of casting I'm disappointed. We did go for Charlotte Rampling for the role of Miss Ferguson, but her fee for her 5 days of shooting was, well, I can't quite do the maths, but it was about 250 times what I actually ended up paying Frances Barber. So even though Frances Barber is a very successful actress, is extremely successful, both on the theatre and in the cinema and on TV in the UK.
Yeah, no, that's I thought Frances did a fantastic job. I mean, all the cast did a really good job of these characters. There were a lot of really quirky ones, and there was, it's kind of, you can kind of tell that they were friends, because there was a lot of chemistry between the characters, even when they were getting into some, more stressful situations.
Yes,
you could tell.
Yeah, because it's kind of after about 10 minutes, it's one long stressful situation for certainly for the lead character and several of the other characters as well.
And those 2 brothers, I noticed it after the fact when I was looking at the cast. I couldn't tell that they were brothers. I mean, they looked and acted very different. So that was I looked at that and I was like, oh, was that intentional? But
yeah, I know it's funny because people said, some people said, oh, those 2 don't look like brothers, and I go, no, they actually are real brothers in real life. So and actually the younger brother, played by Dean Lennox Kelly, arguably looks a bit older than the lead, who is supposed to be a couple of years older than in the film. But if you look closely, they have got similarities.
And so a film like this with seriousness but levity, and also a lot
Mm.
of friends. Were there any real fun experiences during the filming? It must have been, I can imagine it either being like a whirlwind because everyone is just trying to get things done in a limited time, or it could have just
Yeah.
been like a big party for the shoot.
No, it was great fun. The actual house, which is in the beginning of the film and reappears, is my own house in London.
Oh.
And we had, after the 23-day shoot, we had a major rap party there, and that was
Oh, nice.
fantastic fun. All the cast, all the crew, great fun. We also had a really nice private screening in Soho in West London, which again was great fun. Extremely kind of, there was a really good atmosphere, no funny vibes. Everyone did their job, and I couldn't have been much happier with the result, if I'm being honest. Relative to what I put on page, it pretty much is exactly what you see on the screen, and that for any scriptwriter is quite a gratifying experience.
Yeah, that is definitely the difficulty, is translating your vision to the screen. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
To hear.
Yeah.
I think I wrote in my review that this film felt like a mental health midlife crisis story that happened to be set during Halloween. Was there any reason specifically why it was set during Halloween, other than it kind of gives you the opportunity to have weird things happen and some strange occurrences? Was there any other impetus for saying it during Halloween particular?
So there's a few things. First of all, my brother-in-law, this is based partly on him, and he actually is born, his birthday, he was 50 this Halloween just gone. So that was one thing. Second of all, we did want the spooky, weird stuff, like that image of the Grim Reaper that reappears and that stuff. So that was second thing that added to the vibe of the film. And third of all, I did like the idea, and I played on it, of trick or treat, which after you've seen the film in itself, is he being tricked by his younger brother? Without giving too many spoilers away, because maybe he's up to something naughty, or is this some kind of treat? Is he being put through a scenario for his own benefit, perhaps by his wife or someone else? So again, the film's title, Trick or Treat, relates not just to the Halloween day and night, it relates to what's going on in the main character's mind.
Definitely, that makes sense. And yeah, you do get a little more leeway if it's set on Halloween night to have some of those stranger occurrences, some of those visions that he might have had that would seem to be more normal than if it was set at some other random time.
Makes it spookier, makes it more eerie, makes the whole thing a little bit trippy.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd like to move, I call it the lightning round. It's just lightweight questions that kind of relate to the characters, kind of relate to the story. You can choose to answer them or not, although I try to keep them very answerable. They're just supposed to be fun.
Okay.
So first question is, what did you do this Halloween?
This Halloween, I went to a party, which I shouldn't have done because we were in lockdown, but we so far have not got coronavirus.
Yes, agree with you. Glad you don't have coronavirus. Shouldn't have gone, but glad
it was good fun.
Safe.
Yeah, it wasn't too many. It was about 10 of us, and we live in the mountains in Wales now, and there's very little around us. So it was a bit naughty, but we had a lot of fun, and then we got away with it, I think.
Fingers crossed. When did you stop trick-or-treating?
When did I start or stop?
Stop.
Oh, man. I mean, I go with my kids now. So, my last time I went trick-or-treating was last year. It was, you probably go from between about 12 and 16, and then you take it back up when your kids are about, 6. So, I had about a 30-year sojourn, a respite, but now I'm back on it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I didn't this year, but I normally go with my kids, and it's I think it's tough for my wife because I try to be very efficient, and I'm like, let's go here, let's go here, let's go here, let's go here, and then they get tired. I'm like, no, but this house had good candy last year. Let's go there.
Yeah. It's absurd, but it's worth doing.
If you had a preference, would it be an exciting, adventurous life, or a home family life?
Oh, definitely an exciting, adventurous life. And they're not mutually exclusive. So we go to Mexico surfing every 4 months a year, January through to sort of April. The excitement and the fun doesn't have to stop just because you've got a ring on your finger.
Yeah, no, that sounds really fun. That's awesome. That's it's more exciting than I think most family life is. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
hats off to you.
Thanks, mate.
Have you ever gotten good advice in a taxi or an Uber?
You know what? I used to get when I used to work. I used to work as a banker for my sins, and I used to sometimes they'd be getting share tips and recommendations from the taxi driver, and that was always the number one indicator that you have to sell everything. As soon as a taxi driver starts giving you recommendations for what shares you buy, just sell your whole portfolio because you know a crash is coming. And sure enough, taxi drivers in 2007, 2008 started giving a lot of stock advice. And that's when I knew I had to get out of the city and sell everything I had.
Very smart advice. That's that I've never heard of that barometer, but that's a good one to have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
Have you ever talked your way out of a ticket?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think my wife and I, yeah, a few times, including one where I was deemed to be not driving with insurance. And it was purely a chemical. And when my car was about to be towed and I was on my way to Ireland, and I managed to convince the guy that there had been an IT problem. But the reason I managed it was there actually had been an IT problem. I had genuinely sorted out the insurance that morning, but it hadn't quite come through. But yeah, we were this close to everything going wrong with that holiday.
That sounds like a stressful experience. I'm glad you kept
Yeah.
it cool and didn't
Yeah. Well,
resort to something.
yes. No. You got to do it with the cops. Always keep you cool.
Have you ever had to stage an intervention?
Yes.
You
It's
don't
a
have
bit
to go into it
heavy.
if you don't want to, but
Yeah, no, it wasn't with me, but it was my best man. Yeah, unfortunately, he got into hard drugs, and he was kicked out of his home, and yeah, I bought him. I told his wife and staged an intervention, and he's now clean and happy.
oh, that's good. I'm
There's
glad.
a happy end to that story.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's you never know how someone's going to take it, so that's really good to
That's
hear.
right. That's right.
What is your most interesting sushi experience?
All I'd say about that is that I went on my 3-month honeymoon to Southeast Asia in about 10 years ago. The only thing I'd say is that the only thing my wife got pregnant after about day 3, and the only thing she craved was sushi all day, every day. So even though we were in Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, I would always have to find a place that sold sushi. So that was the interesting experience, having to locate a sushi restaurant day in, day out in countries that were quite a long way away from Japan.
Yeah, that's I mean, I guess you could just get some fresh fish, but maybe if she was specifically craving sushi,
It
that
was
could
very
be.
much the rice and all that stuff. Yeah.
I think my most interesting was I've had puffer fish before, and that was
Oh Jesus, yeah. Does that give you the tingly mouth? And
it did. It was less than I thought it was going to be, but there was a little bit of a tingle. It was it was interesting, but I was also younger, so I was like, I'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. And
yeah. Is it worth the risk? That's the question.
I mean, I'm still here. I think it's an interesting story. You can
Yeah,
tell a lot of
yeah,
people.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's that. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
the taste. I remember the taste. It didn't taste fantastic, but it was an experience.
yeah. That's what life's about.
What has been your least fun Halloween experience?
Least fun holiday.
Halloween experience.
Oh, I mean, there was a time back when I was a kid when and this doesn't mean I recommend it. I think I went out trick or treating, and some bigger kids who were trick or treating basically just took all our sweets. It was a
Oh.
deep. Maybe that's why I wrote this film. Maybe it was kind of revenge on those big nasty bullies stealing all my sweets. So that was probably my least pleasant Halloween experience.
No, that sounds terrible. And I guess to end it on a positive note, what's been your most fun Halloween experience?
I think probably the party a few days ago. My mate, it was a party. It was his 50th as well, and let's just say that it was an absolute ball.
That makes perfect sense, especially after locking down for a while, just kind of being able to
Exactly,
get
dude.
out.
Relatively speaking, it was so needed. So it was great fun. Yeah.
Awesome. So now that the film is out digitally, worldwide, presumably, or at least in Britain and the States, what's
Yeah.
next for you? Are you writing something else? Are you working
Yeah,
on something else?
I'm writing a novel about conspiracy theories because I think they're pretty interesting. So I'm trying to write this. I'm trying to get a screenplay I've written about a kind of gangstery film in Kiev, but I'm afraid coronavirus has made an already tricky industry even tougher. So I might stick to the novels and leave the screenplays for a little bit.
Just have those screenplays in the vault for when and if everything opens up again, because who knows when that'll be.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear you're keeping busy. I'm glad to hear you're having a little bit of fun and staying safe. So
yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, mate. It's great talking to you.
Definitely.
Cheers.
That was Geraint Anderson, the writer and producer of the British thriller Trick or Treat, which is available digitally, so you can check it out even though Halloween has already passed. If you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot to make sure all my new videos go straight to you. And as always, please go to watchyourpast.com for all your movie reviews, interviews, and recommendations. Thank you.